Meeting for Monday, March 14th to order. We will note with respect to public access to meetings, we currently are having live meetings. We are also encouraging members of the public who are uncomfortable with attending live. They are able to live stream us. And we will move into the meeting opening and roll call. Carlin, please.
Mr. Mansky.
Here.
Ms. Va.
Here.
Mr. Pope.
Here.
Ms. Portson.
Here.
Mr. Wade.
Here.
Ms. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Ebel.
Here.
Ms. Reno.
Here.
Ms. Erler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will move into item 4, public comments. We received 2 public comments via email. I will read those to start. We have a public comment via email from Carol Colby, 27 Hazelwood Drive, Stevens Point, Wisconsin, 54481, regarding updated teacher contracts. Please vote against the HR recommendation to increase the liquidation damage amounts and instead seek positive rather than punitive actions. Here is a chance to fulfill campaign promises and support the district pillars and strategic objectives to develop and retain quality staff. I'm not sure that increasing the liquidation damage amount is a deterrent, and its perceived harm to administrative/teacher relations may outweigh the advantages. Teacher retention is a serious issue, but the tenor of this proposal casts a pall on our district. We can and must do better. Thank you. We have a public comment from Chelsea Peters, 5556 Bonnie Lane, Plover, addressing both 8A and 13A of our agenda. I am commenting in support of the proposed strategic plan and particularly want to emphasize the truth of the points regarding our issues of teacher retention, bridging the empathy gap for marginalized students, and the continually growing community divide, especially fueled by curriculum misinformation and polarization of topics. I am also not in support of increasing the penalty for teachers who break contract. While I understand it is a burden on our district, it seems counterproductive to the 5-year plan of teacher retention. Rather than increase punishing those who leave, reward those who stay. Make our jobs bearable again. We have 2 members of the public who have signed up to speak. The first is Glenn Reindl, and he is speaking on agenda items 6C and 8A.
Specifically, I didn't exactly know where it was going to go, but similar to Carol Colby, I was speaking to the liquidated damages moving forward. Glenn Reindl, 1024 Brawley Street. I come here today to speak against the liquidated damages and the recommendation from the Educational Committee Board. I feel it's going to do the opposite. And I'll briefly explain. First, you've got to understand teaching is a difficult profession, and of course, in the past couple of years, it's never been more difficult. With online concerns and now in-person concerns, our job is effectively doubled, and yet it's the same amount of time. There are people who stepped into the profession who have difficulty working through. To say to them, I'm going to get one last bite out of you if you want to leave the district before you sign the contract, you're going to pay. And it's not going to be 100 or 200, it's going to be 1,000, 1,500, and now we've moved it up to $3,000. The idea that somehow that extra incentive is going to keep a teacher who either is ineffective, under stress, or, worst case scenario for all of you is like they got a job somewhere else and they want to leave teaching. we will do fine without an extra $1,000 or $1,500. But the first message that comes out of the first educational committee is, hey, here's our priority. Let's make sure those teachers get paid, but they're going to have to pay if they want to go. Every teacher signs this document. This is a document that I'm supposed to sign that's a handbook, okay? And it states, now this is the kind of contract, right? I signed a contract for my pay and for my, this is the kind of contract that I'm signing into. I quote, I understand that these policies and procedures are continually evaluated and may be amended, modified, and or terminated at any time with or without prior notice. I'm supposed to sign this and say, okay, I'm good with it. Now, we've worked through HR, and they said, well, technically, if you don't sign it, you don't sign it. But the idea that it is an equivalent, you signed a contract, we're going to get money from you, it doesn't make sense. Now, I'm not here to complain about that, because if you add it, it's not going to change anything. But if you look at the teachers, I don't think you realize how close you are coming. It could easily, talk to building level principals, it could easily be dozens who had walked out in January. All right, there are a lot of people, highly credentialed people who have given their career to teaching who are really suspect. And I don't see how this adds to the discussion. It can be workload. It can be pay scale, especially pay scale. Do you really think the average teacher who's coming in here, who's an up-and-coming teacher, saying, oh, only 22 years and I'll get to the top? It doesn't make any sense. We can address a pay scale that says, in year one, am I really just 0.9% more important in year two? Most of those steps the teachers take get eaten up by inflation anyway, so effectively you're sitting the same unless money's actually applied to the new step. In case everybody understands, you move up every year. But the secondary thing on this issue is the idea that, ask any building level principal, ask me, a 5-year teacher is worth 10 times a first-year teacher. We're eating up all our pay in all these little increments, and we could have initial educator, right? Competent educator, master educator. Boom, a lot of that money gets eaten up, and you start recommending things that work. There's a lot of things that work. Communication with the board. I'm glad we're open. I'm glad we're here, right? It used to be much more contentious, right? Chris, 10 years ago, it was much more contentious with the school board, but every idea was aired in public. And at a certain point, I think the board said, let's stop airing these things in public. But I think we went too far away, and now the agenda is controlled and things aren't brought up. Retirement. We talk about retirement issues. One of the issues people can leave, you've served 30 years. You've seen thousands of students. Here's a dinner. Thank you. Good luck. That's where we end the discussion. That's where we end the discussion. And the idea that somehow new teachers and old teachers can blend together. Think about what would happen if I knew we were going to have 3 retirements in social studies. I would make sure I got a student teacher in there. I would make sure I had 3 practicum teachers in there, and I would let my principal know who was good, who wasn't good. The opportunity costs are there. It sounds like a lot of griping. Truth hurts. I know. I'm not disgruntled. I'm not disgruntled, but I want to understand that we have a lot of options, a lot of positive options that we can work towards. And I think this is not one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Keith Kadrusky, on item 9.
Keith Kadrowski, 1536 Water Street. Thank you for letting me speak. I've been asked not to talk about this, but to his point, thank you all for opening these, because this is the first time in a while I've been here, and it's pretty frustrating for now a teacher, the parents, everybody, that you shut the people out. So I hope this isn't just a ruse, because there's something happening in a couple weeks, and you're really going to start listening to these people. Thank you.
Thank you. So those were the 2 individuals who signed up to provide public comment. Is there anyone here this evening present who did not sign up who would like to provide public comment? If you'd like to come up, if you could state your name and address and if you could state your name and address in the agenda item that you are speaking to.
I didn't get to see a copy of the agenda.
So you need to, we can only accept public comment on items on our agenda.
Okay. I guess at this time I'd have to review the agenda. My name is Dave Iden, 1008 Matilda Street.
So is there an item you would like to speak to on the agenda?
Could I just review this
Go ahead.
quickly? Thank you.
It's both sides.
No, I'm failing to see anything that I could speak upon. I guess I did have a comment on the teachers, if that would be all right. I mean, it might have been in reference to your earlier speaker here.
Yeah, so the item that we're addressing with respect to the teachers is an increase in liquidated damages if we have a staff member leave us in the middle of the year.
Okay, and I guess I might have some questions in that regard. One of the questions is, obviously you're looking for more teachers to replace those we may have lost at some point. Part of my curiosity is I've been in and out of labor unions. I know the teachers are unionized. To what degree is the influence the unions have on teaching staff and your requirements to follow union contracts? And that's something that I'm just not real understanding of, because I've worked in manufacturing my entire life. I understand what goes on with unions. My understanding with the NEA, which is a pretty heavy-handed union, the teachers don't have a lot of say or influence within the union, as it's a top-down managed type of system. Do you have to work with union contract to hire teachers, or is that outside of that is what comes to mind, I guess, because obviously you're looking for the best qualified teachers.
And we're really, in terms of the agenda tonight, we're focused on an identified issue, and I can't speak to the substance, but we're focused on an identified issue at our last board meeting where we had 5 of our teachers leave very abruptly, which is not normal for the district. And so the board asked administration to come up with some solutions, because we have had a fill rate of about 75 to 80% of substitute teachers this year. And so any teacher leaving us abruptly creates ripples through those buildings. So what we're focused on tonight, the issue is whether we increase the liquidated damages portions of the contracts that our teachers sign each year. So
Okay.
that if they chose to leave us, like abruptly in the middle of the contract, they would have to provide us with an additional $1,000 of payback.
Okay.
That's the only issue that we've got on the agenda tonight.
Okay, well, I appreciate some input and information. Thank you for the ability to speak, and thanks for being open, so we can continue to participate in what's going on here and have a better understanding.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening present who would like to provide input to the board on items that are on our agenda? Seeing none, we will move into item 5, which is presentations. Item A is our Student Senate Representative Report, and that's Carolyn Blakeman.
Hi. Winter sports seasons have concluded, and spring sports are in the process of starting up again. Spash's music department has been very busy lately. The Spash band just performed their spring concert and performed at Shawano's Jazz Fest. Last week, Spash choir, band, and orchestra students competed in the district solo and ensemble competition at Marshfield. 56 Spash student musicians competed, and 27 of the 56 earned a rating of 1 star. the highest rating possible, qualifying them for the state solo and ensemble competition. Tomorrow, March 15th, students and staff will be wearing pink in honor of former SPASH student Hannah Goman, who died on February 19th in a car accident. At lunch, students will have the opportunity to sign a pledge against drinking and driving. Last Tuesday, every junior took a statewide ACT standardized test. On Wednesday, students have the opportunity to explore colleges, tech schools, military, and workforce post-graduation pathways at the College and Career Planning Fair. This Thursday, March 17th, Student Senate is very excited to work with the League of Women Voters to co-host a local election forum, a nonpartisan event where community members can learn more about candidates and ask questions. The event will be in Ben Franklin Junior High's auditorium and begins at 6 p.m. Students and staff are very excited for spring break next week. Fingers are crossed for warm and sunny weather. This concludes the Student Senate School Board update. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Can I just, Carolyn, I just want to say thank you. By the way, it was a pleasure to meet you at the strategic planning session, and it was great to see how involved you got, and we really appreciate your input. We think you did a great job, so
Oh, yeah.
thanks.
Thank you so much for including me in the committee meeting. I really had a great time seeing how everything worked, and thank you for giving me a voice. And the Student Senate came up with a few questions for the forum, and I shared kind of what we decided or came up with in the SWOT analysis to base our school board questions. So, thank you.
Do board members have any questions of Carolyn? So thank you. I think this is the first time that the League of Women Voters has partnered with Student Senate with respect to this forum. And I see it as a wonderful benefit, both for the league as well as for students to be able to participate in this nonpartisan forum to provide the community with information about our candidates. So thank you to
Yeah,
the
we're really
Student Senate.
excited. Yeah, it'll be great.
All right.
And then, yes, we came up with some questions, and we have a bunch of volunteers, and I think it'll be really great for students to just kind of see a community collaborate in a nonpartisan way before an election.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from board members? All right, we will move into item B, which is communication report. Sarah O'Donnell.
Hi. I too had the honor of being with Ms. Blakeman, and I'm excited to know that that's getting some crossover information, taking that SWOT information. So the communication dashboard for February is included in your packet. We again saw increases in coverage and engagement in social channels, impressions, and across media as well. We saw slight upticks in followers on par with what we would expect month over month through winter. Looking ahead, actually looking back, 4K registration for the 22-23 school year is currently open and ongoing. Those numbers are a little bit lower than we would typically see at this time. So Sherry and I are keeping very close contact, keeping an eye on those and seeing how we can help to continue to communicate that. If others have an opportunity to communicate that as well, we would certainly appreciate that. We typically see right around 500 students, so we would expect to be there by the end of the school year. Other active enrollment campaigns we're currently working on include the Giselle 3-year-old preschool program at UWSP and Point of Discovery School. And then summer school registration will officially kick off on Monday after spring break, March 28th. That is all online, and the summer school catalog is currently available for those who are interested in taking a peek. There's really great both enrichment programs and just some fun stuff in there. So. School perception surveys are being finalized. We are going to go to that more condensed version of the survey. We think that will help to increase or keep folks kind of answering those questions that can get a little bit long, we found. I had a chance to meet with the vendor 3 weeks ago, and they had a chance during COVID to really kind of look at that survey and see if they could take some of those questions out and still build a similar index set for us to look at, and they can. So they spent a lot of time doing that over the last 2 years, and we will benefit from that. They moved some districts over last school year, and then we'll move over as well. The only downside with that is we will lose our longitudinal data set, so we'll be kind of starting over because those indexes are built a little bit differently. But I think it's healthy for the sake of the survey to move in this direction. Those will be deployed beginning April 4th, and then I anticipate having results for us to review in June. Thank you.
Do board members have any questions of Sarah? Could you maybe just give us a sense of what some of the summer school classes are?
You have,
I've got
thank
some.
you.
Okay.
Do you want me to do it now or in my
Yeah.
report? Okay. So just a few to name. We've got STEM classes in grades 1 through 8, choir camp for grades 1 through 3. We have not had choir camp since 2019, so we're excited about that. There's some foreign language courses. We've got a French language and culture, Hmong literacy, Spanish language and culture. Swim lessons are back. We have all of our pools open. We were able to offer a lifeguarding course at SPASH this year to get some of our SPASH students certified as lifeguards. So that should help us with finding guards this summer, which was a real problem in the past. We've got some archery camps, river studies. We've got grades 5, 8 going to SPASH to do some FACS stuff, so some family and consumer ed things. So like Sarah had indicated, a lot of remedial courses, but also a lot of enrichment courses. So we're excited about what summer's going to bring.
All right, thank you, Sarah. All right, we'll move into the superintendent's report, and Craig Gerlach is not with us tonight, and Corey will be providing the superintendent's report.
So we continue to monitor our case numbers and align our safety protocols and mitigation strategies appropriately with guidance from the CDC in Portage County. Currently, we have 2 staff members that are positive and 0 students that are positive, so that's a really good sign. We've not had 0 students in a long, long time. And we only have 22 that are quarantined. So our numbers continue to be very low, and we're slowly phasing back many of our mitigation strategies. As Sarah indicated, summer school registration starts on the 28th, and the course catalog is available online. The Boston School Forest is expanding their council membership to include a special education teacher to help advance outdoor opportunities and environmental education engagement for students with special needs. So that's a positive thing. Spring break is next week, March 21st through the 25th. The spring election will take place on Tuesday, April 5th. The candidates are, as they're indicated on the ballot, Jennifer Bushman, Rob Mansky, Dennis Robbie, Barb Portson, Miguel Campos, Alex Summers, Carrie Prokop, and Jeff Ebel. And then, as indicated earlier, the candidate forum is Thursday evening at Ben Franklin Junior High, hosted by the League of Women Voters and the SPASH Student Senate. The county exec portion is from 6 to 6:50. The county judge is from 7 to 7:50, and the school board is from 8 until 9 o'clock.
Do board members have any questions of Corey with respect to the superintendent's report? So could you just let me know, the summer school registration is opening. Is there like a close date for that?
Yes and no. We do have an end date. I don't have that right in front of me, Meg, but we also do accept late registrations. So if there's room in a course and a parent does get in touch with us after it's closed, we do allow them to get in. But please sign up early so that we can staff appropriately. So we encourage people to sign up as soon as possible because some classes do fill up fairly quickly, especially swim and some of those most popular classes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Meg, there's a hand raised.
Oh, Beth, do you have a hand up?
I didn't mean to.
You do. Are you waving at us?
You can't hide it, Beth.
All right. Okay, but thanks for bringing it. It's hard to look out here and up at the
I have a
screen.
question.
Yes, Ann.
Corey, for the 4K registration, is it only
is it only online or can parents do it, I'm sorry, is it only, in person or can parents go, do it online?
They can do it online or in person, but we, encourage them to do it online.
Okay, okay, I'll reach out to you because I was looking online for some parents and they weren't able to, find out where, there was a link where they just kind of talked about the program, about the 4K, didn't have any options to do an actual sign up on there.
Sure. And one thing to mention also, if people need access to a computer or online, they can come in to Bliss and we will help them with that also.
Okay.
Any other questions, Anne?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, we will move into item 6, which is our consent agenda. That includes the minutes of the prior school board meeting from February 14th, 2022, the approval of the schedule of monthly bills, and employment recommendations. I am looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mike Wade and second by Chris Scott. Any discussion or questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I will ask Carlin to call the roll because of the monthly bills.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Portson,
Yes.
Ms. Ratto,
Yes.
Ms. Va,
Yes.
Mr. Mansky,
Yes.
Ms. Erler.
Yes.
And motion carries.
We will move into item 7, which is our business services part of the agenda, and I will turn that over to Chair Chris Scott. Mike Wade, as the chair, was not able to be at the committee meeting. Chris chaired it, and so we will ask her to provide item A, which is the chair report, and then move into the remaining part of the agenda that was chairing.
Okay, thanks, Meg. So we had our committee meeting on March 8th. Very happy to have an open meeting with the committee members. Very happy to have our community members back to join us on that. So one of the items, which is item 7B, is the elementary playground equipment matching grant program. And I believe Tom is going to give a report on that. And that's Tom Owens, our Director of Business Services.
Evening. Are you able to call that up in either PDF or PowerPoint will work?
Yep. You must have shared the wrong thing.
We can go to the next screen when you're able to.
All right. Yep. How can I make this big?
Uh-oh. We're in trouble now.
Okay, how can I make this big though, Corey?
Okay, well, anyway, the board wanted us to take a look at a way in which we could model something, a strategy that would provide equity to support the elementary schools and the parent groups in their fundraising efforts to improve the playground equipment, et cetera, for the kids. And they wanted to find a way that we could do this and help it out, provide them with a safe and fun playground for the kids. So we took a look at this. First thing I did is went out to all of the different schools and took photographs of the sites and looked at all the playground equipment. These photographs represent a portion of the equipment at each site. The first one is Bannock. That equipment there is mostly all the original equipment from when the building was built in 1990, so it shows its wear, et cetera. It's still functional, but it does show its wear. Jefferson, a lot of equipment is 3 to 7 years old. That particular piece right there is brand new. That was just purchased this summer, and it's really quite a nice piece of equipment. It sits on a very terrific surface. It's very spongy, et cetera. It's better than chips, and it's certainly better than the cement I had when I was in elementary school. So, I mean, that's good. The next one is Kennedy, and they've got a lot of space out there to play with, play around in. It's great. A lot of good equipment. This is a newer set. Probably about 5 years old. A lot of kids were on that. You can see the tracks in the snow. That was in January. I did this. And off to what would be my right shoulder or behind you, there's actually some real older playground equipment there. They're like logs. You just crawl on them. They're posts, etc. Still very functional, etc. And the kids have a lot of fun on them. It was kind of interesting looking at the different sites and the different equipment that they had. They all had kind of like a little bit of a different twist, and they used it differently. The sites, of course, the layouts were different. So they had a lot of fun with that. And this is Madison. Madison is a little more of a compact site for where the equipment was. This is one of the pieces that's probably, I'd say, 5 years old. The kids were playing on that. I had to wait till after they were left to get a shot because I didn't want pictures of kids in it. But they have some other older equipment that's off to the left, etc. And that was a pretty good site too. McDill at the top in the blue and white. They have quite an extensive area there where the kids play. And this is a fairly substantial piece. It's a good piece, and it's quite well used. And most of that stuff's been purchased in the last 10 years or so. McKinley has a mix of older stuff, 5 to 10 years. You're looking at a piece at the bottom there that's in that 5 to 10 year range. And then they also have a lot of pieces that are 20 years old, still functional. It's like that other site where it's kind of old, but it's solid wood. It's it's nothing dangerous because we have to inspect all of them and make sure they're safe. But it's just kids are crawling a rock, So it was pretty interesting. The next site, Plover Whiting, has a lot of good stuff, and they have a tremendous outdoor area space for the kids to run and play. And
I just lost
it's
it.
wasn't me.
It was me.
It's okay. But their stuff was like 3 to 7 years old, and it's in good condition, and they have a lot of stuff spread out all over. And a lot of these places have those octagonal play areas.
Not showing.
I'm doing this now. Where they kick the ball around, etc. That's really kind of fun. I don't know. My favorite thing was dodgeball when I was in school. I like that. I like that, but nowadays they don't.
There we go.
They don't do that too much.
Okay, we're going to.
Maybe I'll just let you do it. Maybe.
Maybe. Okay, were we at Roosevelt? There you go. Okay.
Plover Whiting. Yeah, we can look at it. Roosevelt.
You're good.
Roosevelt was kind of spread out more like an L shape, and you see from the back. You probably can't make out too much detail, but there's a lot of nice playground equipment in there, and then there's an older basketball headboard there. But the swing sets there tend to be like 10 or 15, 20 years old, but still very functional. And we're always checking the fittings, et cetera, to make sure they're not worn through, that they're safe, et cetera, but still very functional. But so you have a mix of aged stuff. So on the next page, Washington was the last elementary school. And that's also a fairly large site. And this is on the west side, where they have a lot of equipment with things and boards that they can play with, and other pieces across that walking path to the north. There's some more pieces, and then back on the east side, of their property, there's a number of pieces as well. So there's a mix of stuff out there. This is 8 to 15 years old, and then some of the older pieces, maybe swing sets, et cetera, 25 years or, or 25 years old. So there's quite a mix of equipment out there. Okay, so how can the board help in providing a safe and fun playground equipment for children and do that in somewhat of an equitable, fair manner to everybody else? And what we come up with and what we're proposing is a playground matching grant program. And this is basically how it works as we move on to the next page. Okay, it relies on financial support in the form of a grant from the school district that's based on the percent of free and reduced participants. Reason for that is, yes ma'am?
Tom, can you, before you continue, can you just tell us what happens now and how did we get to looking at something like this? What's happening right now?
With return to buying equipment?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so
Well-
that people understand what currently happened and what led us to look for something.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sure that probably helped reference why we're
Right,
doing this.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that, yeah. Right now, the district does not purchase any of the playground equipment. It's up to the individual schools to do that. In the case of Jefferson, they just raised money and they put in that new piece you saw, et cetera. In the case of Roosevelt, about 4 or 5 years ago, they collected some money and they went to the board and they asked the board to loan them some money and repay them. They would then repay the board over a period of 4 years, which they did do, and they've completed their final payment. So basically, that's been the way they've done it. There may have been instances going way back in history, way before my time, where the boards did more, and I've been told that's the case. But right now, today, there's no support whatsoever in the regular budget for the purchase of this equipment. So that's why we're kind of looking at this, because we have situations where the parents or the composition of one school district may be less economically capable of coming up with sums of money like $100,000 for this, or $120,000 for playground equipment, than another building. So the question then is, how do you do that in a manner that's somewhat equitable? So we came up with a progressive approach to this, progressive scale, by which we looked at the economic capacity of each of the participants or residents of the particular schools. So that's why we looked at free and reduced, because that's the only economic indicator where we can gather data to tell us that which school is more capable of doing that on their own versus another. So that's why we chose that. So how the procedure would go is then the district, if the PTO and the school wants to enter into this program, it's not automatic. They have to want to do this, ask to do this, et cetera. But then what would happen is the district would, if we agree to this, we'd issue the purchase order to cover the cost of the playground equipment and the installation costs, et cetera, and order it, et cetera, and arrange for it to be done. And the loan would be made to a PTO for a non-grant portion. So there'd be a grant portion, which is based on what we felt we could afford, and I'll show you the scale in a minute, and then the loan portion. And then they would repay that over up to a 5-year period. They could do it shorter if they wanted, but to a 5-year period. This scale just kind of gives you an idea where it goes from, this is a free and reduced percent that could be in a school. So it goes from 0 to 100. So, you know, it goes from, if it's at 0%, obviously the district would not match or grant anything because they'd be completely capable of funding it themselves. If they were 100%, which we have no one like that, we would just buy it, okay? And then you've got everything in between. So if it's 50-50, we split it, yada, yada. So that's the concept of that. So if you would take your cursor, Carlin, and click right there. It says see graph. This will work. I set it up so it'll work on a PDF as well. Should left click and it should work. Unless moving it to this software stripped that capability out. Of course it did. Okay. Can you scroll down to the very last slide? Try control click. Try control click. If that doesn't work, we'll just, okay, just scroll it right down to the very last page. It would have jumped there automatically. And then we'll come back to where we were. Keep going. All the way beyond the thumb. There you go. See, we would have jumped there if it worked, and then I'd use that to jump back, but it got stripped out. This shows each school, and it's in your packets, et cetera, each school and where they are in the free and reduced area. And at first I was looking at this, well, maybe I'd do it by, I'll round off the numbers. And then it got a little complicated. I thought, well, why make it more difficult? I'll just, whatever the percent is, I'll take the percent. So kept it simple. But like here's a school. This is, which one upside down here? Kennedy, they're 40%. Here's Madison at 55%. Here's Bannock at 30%. You know, so I mean that gives you an idea of the range, of some of the ranges that we go at. So based on this, and it would be the year based on the actual of the year prior to the year in which they're applying, so that we have a firm number, et cetera. Now you can go back to the other slide, Carmen. Thank you. But anyway, so we just look at the data, and whatever it was for the previous year, that would be the indicator, and it would fall somewhere in that line. Did we do number 4? Which is on the previous page. Did we,
This would
I'm
be
not
the
sure if
next slide.
Oh,
Yep, this would be the next one.
pardon?
You're good. Number 5.
I'm good? Okay. So anyway, so then we've got the district match, which would be the grant, and then the PTO would have a loan amount, and it would be determined again where they fall on the scale. Now they could pay this back in the next 5 years, immediate 5 years, or 4 if they want. Depends how much they're involved in, how much money we're dealing in, and what they feel they could arrange. Item number 6 gives me the flexibility if something happens and they say, I can't make it in 5, but I can do it in 6, or we plan to do it in 5 and something's happened, this or that or whatever, can we get an extra year? The program would authorize me to say, okay, we'll go another year. The only thing is that the school or the PTO at that school, they can't do another loan of this type of program until the other's completely paid back. Now, they probably wouldn't do that if it were a large-scale site, but if it were one piece, you know, for 40 or 50,000, that might apply. So it could come into play. Of course, prepayment is always allowed and appreciated if they want a partial payment of the whole thing or the full year. You know, they could advance pay it, etc. And then if the board adopts this and this is the program, there's no need for me to come in and take up time at a board meeting. Every time anybody wants to do this, you just authorize me to go ahead and follow and execute this plan. If, however, there was something about it that was unusual or different, I felt I needed to bring it in, of course, I could do that, and the plan would allow me to do this. And then I mentioned that number 9. No single program right now the grant could exceed 100,000. This is the grant amount, our matching grant. It's up to the board in the future. If the cost of living gets such and the cost of material gets such that you want to increase this level, that's fine. But I'd have to operate under this restriction until such time that would happen, which would be a point in time when I'd probably come to the board and say, here's a situation. The other thing in this program is you would direct me to create a designated reserve in the fund balance to where we would put monies to support this program, and that all proceeds of the repayment of the loans would then, when they're paid back to this, would go into this designated reserve to help future funding to keep this going, so that perhaps at some point it could be self-sustaining and just operate, so that there'd always be a bit of money there to do that playground thing. So that could get quite interesting if we could reach that point. So that's the recommendation, and subject to your questions.
So I want to know the timing of this, the reason why it's coming before us is, this has been a question that various board members have raised for quite some time. And I'll point out Barb. As someone who raised questions and concerns about the fact that we as a district were providing no funding to playground equipment, and how could we better address, that integral need for our school community. McDill Elementary approached the district recently. They are interested in moving forward with acquiring new playground equipment. And they were approaching the district under the old system. And based on the questions that have been raised by various board members over several years, we had a conversation about administration taking a look at what other options might be available to be able to provide our elementary schools with some support from the district, recognizing that again, this currently hasn't been a line item part of our budget, and the reality is we've been in a deficit budget situation for a while. But the timing of it is because McDill would like to advance their playground opportunities. And so it's important for us as a board to either say we want to stick with what we've been doing, we want to consider what's being proposed, or we've got some questions and some options. But again, that's why it's coming in front of us right now. So go ahead, G.
I have some questions. One you almost answered about Barb asking why don't we pay for it? And I know you answered it then, but I wasn't around then. Is this just general history that we don't pay for playground equipment?
In I guess, G, in the time that I've been on the board, we have not.
Okay.
And PTOs have raised all of the funding, and worked with the district, and as Tom pointed out, playground equipment's really expensive.
Well, that's my next question. What does this set cost? A general ballpark figure of what a playground?
Well, Bill came to us in October when we put him on hold and started the search to come up with this idea, and that was $120,000
for a pretty full
for their site
playground.
For a number of pieces. Yeah, quite a few pieces.
So they would come under the system then. So let's say, I don't know what they are, let's say they're 50/50 for free and reduced. So they would come and say, well, we need 60,000, we'll come up with 60, you get this to 60, we'll pay it off and make it easy, 3 years, 20,000 a year. Is that a really realistic amount for PTOs to come up with?
Sure, it depends on the school because of the size. If they have 500 kids, that means they've got a lot of parents, and if they are 100 kids, they're a fifth the size, so that might not. Of course, they wouldn't require that much equipment, so it's kind of proportional.
But that's not putting a school, a PTO in a real bind. I mean, saying, we need 20,000 from you for the next 4 years or something.
Well, this is certainly significantly less of a bind than they're facing now. Roosevelt did it with no help from the district other than a loan.
I think you mentioned
interest-free, and this would be interest-free too. I think I missed that point.
I think you mentioned Jefferson did that too.
Jefferson,
their own,
they
right?
did, I'm not sure how many pieces, I know they did that one. There's a couple of smaller pieces in the front, but they did that on their own too.
Is it because they have a more motivated base or something like that, that they did all
Well,
themselves?
they had the interest and the willpower and the support of the parents there that were willing to do that, you know, I mean, that's
And
a
the
lot.
community, I think the community also,
Yeah.
and gee, most of them, they're not replacing everything on the playground, it might be a piece. I mean, the district looks at safety for repairs, but I think most of them are not, you know, all the pictures, and Tom, thank you for going out to every school and taking pictures of every playground equipment, all the playground equipment, but usually it's something like that, and if they want to add something that they haven't had before, that they feel, and the community does get involved in that, you know, it's the PTO and the school.
That community of that school.
Right,
Not the
right.
community at large.
Yeah, and if you don't, even if you don't have maybe your grandkids or other kids that aren't going, they might want to use that equipment also.
Well, then my next question is, how do you prioritize this? Let's say schools come in, are they gonna have to compete because there's not enough money for all of them? Is there a system of prioritization?
There's no prioritization. Frankly, the probability of all of them coming at once is pretty remote, because their pieces are in good shape, et cetera. And they still have to come up with the other money. And, you know, the PTOs have to decide what they wanna do. And sometimes they're at a different point in their local history of what they wanna do. They might wanna raise money to do something else. I don't know, smart boards, computers, whatever the case may be. And then maybe there's a site that does it.
So if a school comes, I mean, let's say they really need it, I mean, they really have unsafe equipment, it's incumbent upon the school to move to replace it.
If it's in bad shape, yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't come in and say, like you said, you inspected it and wasn't safe, it needs to be replaced. Do they move to the top of the list or something like that?
If the board approves this plan tonight, and tomorrow, a principal and a PTO walk into my office and say, we wanna finance, well, take McDill. They got about 120 grand they're looking at, and we wanna do that. And say, okay, let's talk, I gotta write up something here, we gotta get an actual quote that'll stick now, cause it's been some time, we gotta redo that. And then we'll have to write up a document where they would sign, they say they agree to this program and they're gonna repay us in this amount, yada, yada, and we get it all set up, signed, and then we order the stuff.
I mean, it's a wonderful system, but what worries me is like McGill comes in, they say they want $120,000 worth of equipment, but you know Kennedy needs to replace some stuff like right now. And I would assume their principal or PTO would be all over that, but what if they're not? I mean, the principal's not a safety person, they don't know. for
Yeah,
sure.
I can't second guess every, principal and PTO, I mean, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Like I said, another reason for showing you the playground equipment, there's a lot of equipment that's out there and it's in very good serviceable condition, so PTOs are gonna have to weigh, and the sites are gonna have to weigh whether they wanna put their money in playground equipment this year, or wait 5 years, or whatever,
I'd be worried about if we went ahead and moved on one school and had most of our money out there.
Yeah.
And some other school said and maybe somebody wasn't paying attention or something, and it's like, this stuff is junk, we gotta
Well,
get it.
I'll
And we
Those
wouldn't have-
get,
wouldn't have
Gee,
any
just to
money.
answer your question, those get inspected multiple times each year. So it's our job as a district to make sure that they're up to speed with safety. And if they're getting near the end of life, there's communication that happens with the principals and the PTOs.
So
So,
those safety
absolutely.
inspectors would report that to us or to Tom?
Tom.
And Tom would report it to the principal saying, so that you want to get on this because we have money now and might not have it later.
Right, right.
Barb?
At the time that Roosevelt did theirs, we had a couple pieces of equipment that could not be used. It was yellow taped off, like a crime scene. And we were told that if you can't replace that, it's just gonna be gone. So you'd have more open space to play. obviously, the kids didn't want that.
Right.
So I think this is a great start to helping those elementary schools keep their equipment relevant, safe.
And G, in answer to your question, there isn't gonna be a list. It's not gonna be someone gets in first place or someone gets in second place. I mean, what this request to the board tonight is, if we approve this, if a school comes to us, and is looking to replace equipment, we as a district are going to work with each of those schools. As Tom indicated, clearly with our PTOs, it will take, right now we know McDill's been waiting for us to take a look at what our existing system is and whether we want to move into another one. But if there are other schools, it's going to take them some time to determine what is it they're looking for, what type of equipment they want. Because as Tom said, all of them have their own kind of unique imprint based on what their site is, based on what their community is. And so this is the board saying, if you come to us and you're looking for a grant under this program, the district's going to do that. And, you'll have up to 5 years to pay it back, and under exigent circumstances, you'll have the ability to come to the head of business services and extend that out to no more than 10 years. But right now, it's the ability to reach out to our schools and say we want to partner in providing that playground equipment for kids in a different way than we've been doing in the past.
So if we were helping one school and another school comes, and there's not enough money in there to help them, just have to wait.
We're gonna find, no, the money will be there. And the money might short-term be out of fund balance. But short-term, as Tom said, that the plan would be to create kind of I don't want to say it's a revolving loan fund, but basically, ultimately, we will, over time, the district would create a designated fund for playground equipment that would be replenished as different schools pay back the loans that we provided them. But and that's going to take time. But you're correct. I mean, but under the current system, it required an upfront commitment on the part of the district. So with Roosevelt, we loaned. I mean, we went out and purchased the money, and they paid us back. This is just us as a board saying we're going to partner in that cost with you. So we're still going to loan you the money up front. It's just you're not going to have to pay back 100%. And we recognize that some of our school communities have different levels of resource to be able to support those projects.
Well, we're going to be asked tonight to commit a certain amount of money to that fund, right?
No. We're just
Well,
we're gonna approve
That's not a hard and fast number then?
We're approving the project. We're approving this proposal, which would be that our district will provide funding that will be based on free and reduced lunch population for PTOs, school communities that come forward to request it.
I can give you some hard numbers. We have 9 elementary schools. 100,000 is the max of a grant.
Oh, you did put a max on.
So 9 elementaries would all have to come to us with projects in excess of $200,000, 200 or more, to max out that 100 all at the same time. And our maximum exposure, if that happens, would be $900,000. That's our maximum exposure. That's not going to happen.
I had visions of this being a different account and that you would loan out money until that account was exhausted. and then we couldn't do any more till it came back in. That's not.
Oh, the money that's repaid, et cetera, that goes back into to the grant, into the reserve, and would be used to loan other money, so eventually could get to the point where it'd be self-supporting.
So when someone borrows and repays that money, they would start a fund. Every time a school repaid, it would go into that fund, so eventually it would have its own.
Well, that's where I got the idea that the fund would be self-limiting, like there's X amount of dollars in that fund.
Right.
But there isn't. So there will never be a fund just for this. It'll just come out of our Fund 10 or.
So if we loan McDill $60,000 and they start paying us back that $60,000, it will go into a designated fund so that if in 4 years, all of a sudden Plover Whiting says, we want, $75,000, then we would take it out of that fund.
So it's gonna self-create it.
Exactly.
Eventually, yeah.
And the chances of every elementary school or even 3 or 2 coming at the same time is very low. Very low. Because as you saw, most of them have equipment. It's not like we're starting with no equipment. It's just slowly phasing new things in.
Are there any other board members who have questions about, or questions for Tom? We don't have a motion on the floor yet.
No, we don't.
So I guess if there's anyone who has questions for Tom with respect to the present, now would be the time. Hearing none, I would look for a motion to approve the playground matching grant program as presented.
So moved.
We're gonna give it to Barb.
Barb owns it.
Barb owns it.
Motion by Barb. Second by Judy. Are there any discussion or questions on the motion? And you have a you're just unmuting yourself. All right, all those in favor with aye, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with nay, please say nay. The motion is approved. Thank you, Tom. All right, Chris.
Gonna say that. Okay, so item 7C is bid awards from our referendum. We take bids on the referendum projects, and these are bids for Point of Discovery School, the Support Services Building, and the Transportation Parking Lot, as bid package 21 through bid package 23 are showing. And Tom, you're going to speak to that?
Yes, these came in after our committee meeting, and we do need to get these approved. The bid package 21 is for Point of Discovery School. The low bidders were Altman, EGI Mechanical, ECD Control and Design, and Van Ertel Electric. For bid package 22, Support Services Building, Altman Construction was the low bidder, the alternate number 1. And for bid package 23, which was the transportation parking lot, the low bidder was American Asphalt. And the alternate, which we were considering looking at, was a concrete overlay. We determined we didn't want to do that, so American Asphalt was low on that. The total was just a little over 1.3 million. Breaking it down, the budget for pods was 439, almost 440,000. With low bids, allowances, and other items, the project for that particular site was over by about 241,000. The budget for the Support Services Building is 187,000, and the low bids and allowance and is estimated to be over by about 21,000. The budget for the transportation lot was 883,000, and the low bid is under budget by 333,000. So taken as an aggregate block of all 3 bids, then the aggregate budget is under budget by a little over 71,000. So it washed out okay, and we were happy about that. So it's hard to tell sometimes how these are going to be coming in. And I should point out that these budget numbers are now 3 years old, so it's amazing that they're coming in as good as they are. So our recommendation is to approve the bids as noted.
Do board members have any questions of Tom with respect to the bid packages presented? I guess I'll note, just like all of us are aware, costs recently aren't going down, they're going up. So I'm grateful that the three in combination are continuing to bring us in under budget for the referendum. So hearing no questions, I am looking for a motion to approve the low bidders as shown in bid packages number 21, number 22, and number 23, totaling $1,336,586.
So move.
Motion by Wade, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mansky. Any discussion or question on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries.
Okay, so item 7D, this is a report that updates us on the referendum progress. Tom, are you going to be reporting, or is?
I can or not, either way.
Go ahead.
Okay, you are, go ahead.
Oh, okay. The financial report shows paid to date is 68.9 million. Contracts issued to date, 76 million. And the contract balance is at 7 million. Now, this was as of March 1st. And we've made some payments, obviously, since then, too. We're still hovering around our target of having, of not getting much into 2 million or so, not getting into that in our fund balance, and it's hovering right around there. So we're nervously awaiting the completion of these projects, et cetera, and seeing how that's going. But we're hanging in there, and so that's the information, subject to your questions.
And this was for information only. And Tom, are you still projecting, and I know it's just projecting the final at the end of by the end of the year in the referendum projects?
For this?
Yeah.
Well, we're targeting trying to be close to the total amount, the 78.
Right.
Included $2 million of our fund balance.
Oh, okay.
Not all of that was referendum. So I think it's 76 million roughly was referendum, and then we had 2 million. So what we're trying to do is keep the cost to come in at about 76. That's when I said about the 2 million, and we're holding close to that so far.
Okay.
Any other questions of board members? In completion, we're hoping by the start of next school year for all of the projects?
Well, most of them are going to be done. I think we have, I know one thing for sure that's it's a minor thing. It's a generator. There's a 12-month time lag on that arrival, so that won't happen till next summer. So, but we may be done with everything else except an item like that, because the delivery delayed would have to be delayed, but yeah.
All right.
Okay. So, also I think I mentioned the business service and HR committees. And number 8A on our agenda is the updated teacher contracts that people were speaking about. And that's regarding the liquidated damage amounts that were presented. Beth? Yep.
She's right behind you.
I was looking up on the screen. I never know where everybody is.
Good evening. So the district sets liquidated damages for individual employment contracts. And this is so if someone breaks their contract with the district before the end of the school year, we can collect an amount from them. We, as Meg mentioned earlier, there were at least 5 teachers that broke their contract during the school year. There were also 5 that broke their contract right before the start of the school year. So you can imagine how difficult it is to find a teacher, or in today's world, a long-term sub, to fill these positions. It's very disruptive, not only to the students, but the staff as well, because a lot of times the staff has to cover those classes. So we have been below our neighboring districts in terms of the amounts that we charge for liquidated damages for at least the last year. And what we are recommending is that we increase our damages in an effort to deter people from breaking their contract before the end of their contract. We are proposing to leave the first level at $1,000 through the end of June. And then the second level, we're proposing to go from $1,500 to $2,000. And then beginning August 1st and thereafter, it would be $3,000, up from $2,000. There are situations that the superintendent can waive liquidated damages, and those situations are, you know, if someone is ill or if they have a family relocation situation, and that is up to the superintendent. Somebody would have to submit a letter to the superintendent requesting such a waiver, and that does happen. The other thing I would mention is that new hires going to other districts, a lot of times other districts do pay those liquidated damages. We do not make that a practice here. And at one point, our neighboring districts weren't doing it either, but I think in today's environment, it's happening more frequently. So, any questions? Chris?
Can you just speak a little bit, because you're in HR, and so we're not as familiar with what happens when there's 5 teachers and then another 5 teachers. What's actually happening in the process? Because you've got to have teachers in the classroom.
Right.
Our we're unable to get the subs that we need all the time. But I mean, that's got to throw a lot of disruption for you. So how much of a process, because I know my son's a teacher, I know in the middle of the year or, you know, certain times of the year when you're doing this, you're really struggling, because a lot of teachers are not looking for a job.
Not after the start of the school year,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Can you talk just a little bit about the difficulties that happen, which is why this is it's not a punishment, it's a deterrent. And I know, I had talked to you about that, that there are times that they're waived, you know, for extenuating circumstances.
Yes, so obviously, the minute we know a teacher is leaving, we frantically try to fill that position through the recruitment process. We advertise, we interview, we try to get subs in that classroom. We try to get a long-term sub in a lot of cases when we know it's going to be a real difficult position to fill. I can tell you that out of the 10 positions that we had this year, we still have one that's still open. So it's a matter of, you know, people sharing, you know, sharing courses with one another. That's easier done at the secondary level than it is at the elementary level. So it's a challenge. Yeah.
Did those 5 people at our last board meeting, we had to look at 5 resignations like that day, did they pay the $2,000?
I don't have those names in front of me, just depending on what their situation was. They would have had to pay the liquidated damages. They cannot be under another contract. We don't release them from their contract until they pay those liquidated damages. They can't be under 2 contracts at one time. So most individuals do pay their liquidated damages, and on occasion we get requests to waive it. And again, this only affects an individual who's actually breaking their contract. So teachers by statute are required to sign their contracts by June 15th of each year. That's not a date we set, that's what the state sets. And then, you know, hopefully they know where they're going. Most districts are doing their heavy recruiting in, you know, March, April, May.
just as a point there, I talk to student teachers all the time, and their big thing is, somebody will offer me a job now.
Mm-hmm.
Do I take that job or do I wait because there might be something else I want? Just take the job, because schools, as we said before, are paying their liquidation fees.
Yep.
That's how badly they want people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gone on all the time. My question is, you're essentially doubling these? Is that what's happening?
We're going up 500 at the second level, and we're going up 1,000 at the third level.
First level remains 1,000?
Yes, through the end of June.
Is that what, for example, Wisconsin Rapids, Wausau, Marshfield, what are theirs at?
Yes, so we would be the same as Wausau and Mosinee, I believe Merrill. The only differences between Wisconsin Rapids and Marshfield was that for those first couple weeks in June, they charged $500, and then they go right into that 1,000, 2,000, 3,000.
Do they have any idea whether it's acting as a deterrent? So I personally think it's a punishment, but
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't want them to leave, we want them to honor their contract. If they don't, when we're gonna hit them with this cost, but what is the real cost of them leaving? I mean,
Well, right. I mean, we'd rather retain them through the end of the
Austin,
school year.
say you need to replace the cost to our district, but is it really $3,000? Is it really $2,000? Is it really $1,000?
It depends on how we fill the position and how long it takes to fill the position, because you're paying, a long-term sub, you're paying $215 a day. If you're having teachers have to take on extra outside of their normal workday, they'll receive a premium for that. So, plus the cost of advertising and the administration of trying to recruit. I would venture to gain it's more than $3,000.
And the impact it has on students when we have teacher
Right, the
turnover.
disruption, yes. Mm-hmm.
Ann, I believe, I think Ann's got a hand, Ann, did you have a hand up, Ann? Ann?
So my question or comment, I apologize, I was on.
No worries, no worries.
So my question or I guess a comment is, have we looked at the impacts of being able to recruit future teachers if we increase this? I understand that it's a similar amount as close to our around our district, but do you think that keeping it low is kind of a driving point for teachers to apply within our school district?
I don't believe so. I think when somebody's ready to sign a contract, they're committing to that year-long assignment and salary. And again, it will be comparable to what our other districts are. So I don't see it as being a negative impact on our recruitment process, but I do think that it will help in people sticking around till the end of the school year.
I could attest the experiences. Once you sign your contract, you're not really thinking about what are the termination fees, things like that.
Mhm.
But I'm concerned because if you want people to stay,
Mhm.
and you say, if you leave, I'm gonna punish you. I want you to stay, so I want to make it so you want to stay. And obviously, there are a couple things like money and things like that will encourage you to stay, not say we'll punish you if you leave.
Mhm.
That's the attitude that concerns me.
Our liquidated damages aren't something new. I mean, we've had liquidated damages since probably the invention of the contracts.
So I had Barb, and then I'll go to Rob.
I think that it appears to be a punishment to our current staff. And I understand you want to be like the surrounding districts, that's, competition right now. But we're not like other districts, We just talked someplace about retirement benefits. Our teachers don't have any. So they see it as a slap in the face. And it wouldn't, $3,000 wouldn't stop me from breaking my contract if I wanted to go teach swimming instead. It wouldn't impact me at all. And if the other district would pay it, I'd say, go.
Yeah.
But I see it as a negative myself, but it's me.
Rob?
And, you know, Beth, I talked to you about this last week, and I expressed my concerns at this point. I agree. I don't see it as a deterrent. I think by the time teachers are at that point, they're leaving, and I don't see $1,000 going one way or the other. What I'd like us to do is focus on what's making the teacher get to that point. What in the process beforehand? What are we doing to keep the teachers versus punishing the ones that leave? And I know it's a concern. I know we're talking about teacher retention, and it's a serious issue. I don't think this addresses that. I think it just I think it's not really deterrent across the board.
Yep.
First of all, it's not for the teachers that fill out their contracts. You sign a contract, you agree that the district establishes the schedules and is all set to run the school year based on commitments made by people that want employment. Now, this is only for those that will not carry out their contract. Now, if you want to, there is going to be turnover. Teachers are going to leave for a number of reasons. And fit can be one of them. Maybe you just, don't feel right in the district. The values are different, and that's fine. But if you commit to a job, just expect you to live up to that commitment. That's it. So, and I don't see how it's a slap in the face to any of our current employees that sign a contract and live by the contract. They live by their word. To me, it's just decency. It's politeness. It's business. It's living up to your word. That's it.
So my daughter's a teacher in New York. Well, I've a couple now. I'm going to have, I think, my son as well. And she is leaving her job. And she's giving notice. But it's notice for the end of June, when the contract year is over. Because school is different. Education is a different profession. It's about the commitment in that classroom that starts in August and that moves through June when school is out. And I do want to note this issue came up last month, and the board asked questions. Well, what can we do? I mean, because to have 5 teachers leave in January overnight, like we're leaving tomorrow, puts a huge burden on everyone in that building and on those kids in that classroom. And we all know we're at a 75 to maybe 80% sub-fill rate this year if we're lucky. And it's just the reality. So I guess I'm in agreement with Jeff. I mean, a contract's a contract. And you make that commitment. And the vast majority of our staff do. We're talking about a very tiny, small group, because the vast majority of our teachers, and we saw it last month too, we have people who are putting in resignations, but they're putting them in for June. They're agreeing to stick out the year under the contract that they signed. And there are I'm an attorney. There are repercussions to breaking a contract in every single workplace that we have. I don't believe it's a punishment. I'm not even sure if it's a deterrent. But for me, it's the reality that we have to pay how much a day for subs?
If it's a long-term, it's $215.
$215 a day. So, I mean, 3,000 is not, it's not gonna recoup, and it's not, and I don't know that that's what it's meant to do, frankly. It's just the reality in the current marketplace right now. That's what our surrounding districts are providing for in their contracts. And, you know, I don't know. If someone is gonna up and leave overnight in January, I'm not happy with them. And I'm not happy with the impact that that decision has on the kids in their classroom and on their co-workers, who we've all heard for at least this school year are having to do double duty. They're having to give up their prep time, and they're having to give up lunches to deal with the reality of what's happening in our schools. And it's not just our district. It is districts everywhere.
And if
So
there's an extenuating circumstance,
if it's
it
an
can be waived.
extenuating circumstance, if we have someone who, you know, winds up with the situation where they have a serious illness, or a family member who does, or they wind up with a spouse who needs to relocate to, you know, somewhere that a commute isn't a reasonable option, the superintendent has the ability to work through that. And so I guess for me, for me, it's not like personal. It's the reality that that it's a big deal, especially when someone quits us in January, because most hiring occurs in what?
Starting
April?
now, yeah, I mean,
March,
Like
April?
to start advertising now, so as soon as we know of the openings.
But we're looking at that unfolding of what the applicant pool is, and when it's available for us to pursue our mission of recruiting the best quality staff we can, and January is not it.
You have a hand up.
Anne?
Sorry, I just didn't put my hand up.
No. Oh, okay.
G has a question.
Is it okay, is it proper to ask, something drove these 5 people to leave? Now, is it proper to delve into that, or is that something that we
Can't
shouldn't
talk about personnel matters,
Okay.
unfortunately.
But can you understand how the teachers feel about that? It appears like it's one more thing at a time when they're exhausted, they feel a weight on their shoulders every single day. I mean,
It's been a tough 2 years.
it's been hell for them.
Can't they understand that this is an effort to help with that issue? This is a way to
But it
resolve
wouldn't
some of it.
stop anybody. It wouldn't stop, I don't think increasing
You
it
don't
would.
know.
I don't think.
It would be great if it would, and again, it does offset the cost. I don't know if any of you have ever had employees where you depend on people to come in every day, and you don't appreciate the disruption in an organization until you have been responsible for it. And I have been responsible for that, and it's very disruptive.
And I think there's one thing that you cannot put dollar signs on, it's the impact to students. And that's what really, that really concerns me. I mean, they've had a lot going on in the last 2 years too. And to have, you know, a teacher leave in January and then have multiple subs maybe for 1 or 2 months, and then maybe somebody that we could find, you know, consistently for the last month or two. It's just, it's a lot on kids, and that concerns me.
Are we ready for a motion?
Do board members have any further questions of Beth or Corey? If not, I believe we're ready for a motion.
So I'll make a motion to approve the liquidated damage amounts as presented to the school board.
Second.
I have a motion by Scott, I have a second by Wade. Any discussion or question on the motion? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed with nay?
Nay.
So we will have a roll call.
Mr. Mansky,
Nay.
Ms. Va,
Nay.
Mr. Pope,
Nay.
Ms. Portson,
Nay.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Ebel,
Yes.
Ms. Rano,
Yes.
Ms. Erler,
Yes.
5-4.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
We will move into educational services, and I will turn that over to Chair Rob, Mansky.
Yeah.
But there was to provide us with an
Yep.
update of what happened at the committee meeting. There are no action items,
No,
but
we only
Rob will
have,
provide an update.
we had 3 informational items. We talked about the extended math courses that extended a 1-year course over 2 years. After 2 years of review, the ACT and school report cards demonstrated that some students were not accessing essential curriculum and some were performing poorly. So the 7 and 12 secondary math teachers reviewed the data, evaluated the math program, and researched the most effective instructional material. There's 2 results, include work to recommendation to eliminate the extended math courses and to purchase new instructional materials. So on April 6th, the next professional development day, all 7 to 12 math teachers will meet to make a resource selection that will be recommended to the board. And if there are questions, I would direct them to. Okay. Next up was the Youth Enrichment Services, the YES program update. The YES program is a collaboration between Portage County Health and Human Services, the Boys and Girls Club of Portage County, Stevens Point School District, Children's Wisconsin, and the Center for Wellbeing. This program is designed to reduce the in-school referrals to the youth justice system, provides brief interventions 1 to 2 days per week for several weeks, and the program has seen a lot of success. From 2019 to 2021, the school referrals to the formal system dropped from 78 to 27, and the overall percentage of referrals from the school dropped from 50 to 28%, which is a decrease of 23%. And Caleb is there. He can answer questions if there are any about that one. Nope. Don't see, unless did he pop behind us? Is he standing behind me?
Yeah. He's all over.
The last item was an update on the Kennedy Child Care 4K program. This Child Care 4K has experienced success during its inaugural year. Right now they have they're licensed for 25 students. They have 23 students enrolled. 9 attend the Kennedy Child Care and Kennedy 4K. 8 of those students will attend Kennedy Child Care and Kennedy 4K for the 22-23 school year. They also have students on the wait lists when the child turns 3 years old to attend Kennedy Child Care. So we had a great presentation about their success at that program as well. And that's what I have.
Board members have any questions at all about any of the reports that came forward?
Just a comment, the presentation for the YES program was amazing. It was just the people that are so passionate about making sure that they can address the needs, not only of the students, but the families. It was just heartwarming. It was wonderful. I have a comment. I don't know if we can do this now. One of the items that I forgot to mention, and it was not an action item on business services. Do you want to wait till the next meeting? It was just an informational item. We can wait, or I can just mention what it was.
Is the board,
Is that a?
is the board comfortable with Chris noting it?
So one of the items on the agenda was our professional building, which Charles Fermanus Center is located in. Part of that building we've been leasing out, and which helped with the cost. I think the cost was $85,000, and they were providing about $65,000 in a lease amount. They've decided they're not going to lease from us. So what will be coming back either to the committee or the board is some options about that building. Looking either at possibly selling it or also relocating the school in a different location. That's going to be coming back to us. There's been no decision. It's just in the discussions right now. So sorry I forgot that.
Thank you for that, Chris.
You're welcome.
When do you expect that to?
They weren't sure. They're working on, they just found out about the lease, so it'll come back either to the committee or the board, depending on how long it takes to come up with some solutions. Thank you.
So any questions, I guess, of either of our chairs with respect to those presents? Hearing none, we will move into general, which is our 2022-2027 strategic plan.
So on February 28th, 30 stakeholders got together with Dr. Joe Schrader to go through our strategic planning process. Jeff, Chris, and Barb were able to be part of that process, along with staff, students, parents, administration. And so basically what we did is we redefined and we defined our mission and our vision. We did a SWOT analysis, which determines your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities and strengths, and threats. And then we really looked at what we're doing well and where are some areas for growth. So what came out of that is we're going to remain with our current pillars because a lot of the work in our last plan was kind of halted once COVID hit. So we decided to continue with our current pillars, and then we made adjustments to the strategic objectives down below. This work will be the foundation of everything that we continue to do in the district. It will be tied to district goals, it will be tied to school and building level goals, and then we'll bring updates back to the board on a regular basis like we had in the past. So it was a great process. Everyone was engaged. Everyone had an opportunity for input. And I'm really excited about the work that we did because I feel like this gives me a really good roadmap in the next years to come as Craig and I transition into the new role. So with that, I would ask that we approve this plan and move forward.
So do board members have any questions of Corey or of the board, or do the board members who were actually present at the strategic planning have any input that they would like to provide to the full board?
I would just say I think it was a great cross-section of community, staff members, the just different administration, very collaborative. It wasn't a cookie cutter discussion. I think everyone, we shared back and forth a lot of the information, very, very positive, very, very productive, agreements and disagreements, but I think it came to a really great discussion at the end, and I really like some of the changes. They weren't huge, but I think after 5 years, they just kind of clarified some of the things that we need to look at now. So I thought it was great. I wasn't able to attend the one 5 years ago, but was very, very glad I was able to attend this one.
I was at the one 5 years ago, and this one, again, I'm glad I had the opportunity. I think I was pinch hitting for G, was it, or for you? I can't remember. Anyway, so I'm glad I had the opportunity to attend and to participate again. It was a diverse group. It's like making sausage. It's a messy process. But thing is that I think our moderator did a great job at keeping things moving and at bringing the group together to form these statements. So it's never easy, and it's always an interesting process. But I'm very pleased with the outcomes.
Rob, and then Judy?
Was the original plan to stick with the 4 pillars? Was that from the beginning, or did that evolve in the conversation?
Yeah, that was in the conversation, because we actually took a look at them, said, do we want to revisit these? And we actually did talk about adding a 5th pillar. And came around to the understanding that what that fifth pillar would do is actually incorporated in all other four pillars. So it was already incorporated in the existing structure of the strategic plan.
Anne?
Just a question, I'm just gonna bring this up. I'm looking at the SWOT analysis, and one of the strengths, it says school safety, for students feel safe at school. Can you just kind of go over how that was determined, if it was surveys or conversations, or how that came to be about for our strengths?
So how those statements were determined, Anne, was each, they broke us up into groups. There were probably 6 different groups, maybe?
Yeah.
6 different groups. And we talked about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then we had to rank order them, each group. So this was a compilation of every group's analysis of each of those particular areas.
I think too, maybe, Anne, maybe you're addressing how they figured out that the students feel safe. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I thought that's what the SWOT analysis
Because
was.
that group dove into the surveys and what other things did
Yes.
they look up at all stats?
We had a pile of data that we looked at. That was, each person had an opportunity to look through that data, but then we broke it up because it was so immense that different groups had different portions of that data to look at. And Barb's right. They looked at surveys, we looked at test scores, we looked at just a multitude of things.
Were any of these data that you all looked at, were any of them desegregated, or was it just all, or were they just all like anonymous surveys done by students?
No, they were disaggregated. Some portions of that, like test scores, discipline referrals, suspensions, expulsions, that sort of thing was all disaggregated.
And so was the statesy stuff also desegregated data that was used?
And I'd have to go back and look at the safety stuff. I can pull that packet and share that later, but I believe it was.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Tori, I do have a copy of that, if you need it.
Okay.
If it, for Ann and needs that.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
I think maybe what Ann was thinking of here, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I was thinking of it, is we just had a big petition signed by a lot of former SPASH and SPASH students that said just the opposite, that they didn't feel safe. And there was a pretty large number, and we acted on it right away, and that's what came to hiring our, what's the acronym for it, DEI?
EDI.
DEI personnel that flies right in the face, directly in the face of that statement. And I know you had a lot of data, you had a lot of information, things like that. But I would value more the anecdotal information from those very students who said they don't feel safe. Because if one person doesn't feel safe, that's a problem. We all know that. And I was teaching there for 20 years, and I didn't see hardly any of the stuff that those kids mentioned because I was oblivious to it.
Sure.
So that to me tells me that unless you are the person, you're probably oblivious to that. And that statement troubles me greatly.
Which statement are you talking about, G?
The one Ann referred to, school safety, students feel safe at school. I think we all know stories of students who, for school was a terrible existence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The majority of our students, when they're given a survey, indicate that they do feel safe at school. But gee, I'm not discounting, you're right. I'm sure there are students in our buildings every single day that don't feel safe any day. And then there's some that come, days where something happens or occurs, or they witness or observe something that it just doesn't feel like it's a safe day.
Then a statement like that overrules those minority of students in number, that come to school every day scared. And when we make a statement like that, it's like saying, well, you must be wrong.
You know, this is a problem with using data and percentages. You look at it and you say 80% of our kids feel safe, well, we're doing a good job. But there's 20% of our students that say they don't feel safe.
Right.
I mean, and that's, those are real kids, those are real people. And just by saying that, you know, we, 80% feel good, doesn't mean that we're done dealing with those issues. Matter of fact, 20% is a big number.
Well,
And
you don't know
I
if
think
it's
the
20.
efforts that we're taking from the district is to address those 20%, that 20%, because our mission says, you know, all students, everyone. So, you know, again, I don't think that saying that, you know, the majority of our kids feel safe at school is not an incorrect statement.
Yeah, but it doesn't really say that, Jeff. It says it's a strength of our school that students feel safe at school. I would say, on the other hand, a weakness would be we do have a significant number of people who do not feel safe. Now, it may not be better or worse than any other school. I mean, it's a problem everywhere.
If we can
won't
get
attack it unless we
80%,
identify it.
if we can get 80% to feel safe, you know, why can't we get and again, gee, I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, efforts that we've taken in the last year or two have been to address exactly that.
Oh, definitely. But if you say it's a strength, good, we're good at that. Where is it in our weakness?
What's important to note, though, G, with this was just an exercise that we did that day. I mean, it's not that we're saying that these are, you know, part of, or this is what we're going to hang our hat on. It was just an exercise that we went through to come up with that final copy of the strategic objectives underneath those pillars.
I understand that. The people there, maybe some were SPASH students, maybe they had great experience, maybe they didn't. I'm not saying Stevens Point district students, but a lot of this happens at high school, junior high level where this happens. Yeah, I see what Ann says is we cannot blind ourselves, and I don't think we have. I think this doesn't recognize those kids.
I understand. I hear what you're saying.
So I think it's important for us as a board, I mean, literally the last page of what we're looking at is what we as a board are being asked to approve. It does not include a SWOT analysis that occurred as an exercise on that day. What we are being asked to approve is retaining our mission to prepare each student to be successful, retaining our vision to be the leading innovative school district, empowering lifelong learners to strengthen our communities, and then to approve our beliefs, the district pillars remaining, and organizing our continuous improvement work at the system and school level over the long term, fostering student engagement, growth, and learning, recruiting, developing, and retaining quality staff, responsibly managing finances, facilities, and operations, and connecting school, family, and community. And then our district pillars are further defined and supported by the following 5-year strategic objectives. We will focus on key performance objectives each year within these identified areas in order to meet our mission, vision, and belief statements for student learning. Under fostering student engagement, growth, and learning is a strategic objective: improve student engagement, growth, mental health, and wellness in an inclusive environment focused on the development of the whole child. The strategic objective under recruiting, developing, and retaining quality staff is provide an equitable and inclusive environment through communication, collaboration, professional growth, and support. The strategic objective under responsibly managing finance, facilities, and operations is identify, secure, and sustain resources for equitable allocation that reflect district belief statements. And the strategic objective under connecting school, family, and community is to foster inclusive partnerships to enhance learning and engagement opportunities that create a sense of belonging. So that's what the board is being asked to approve tonight. And what we've seen, it's been disrupted with COVID, frankly. But what we have seen, at least what I have seen over the course of this, is our administration, our cabinet, our leadership, our buildings, our individual grade levels, our individual subject levels, I mean, you name it, our individual departments, creating their annual strategic goals, strategies, and objectives based on this blueprint that we're providing them. Because the bottom line is that they're the experts we hire that work full-time for us as professionals. And it's important that we as a board set out that guiding blueprint for them to follow. And it sounds like what the strategic planning group is providing to us is the same mission, the same vision, a little bit of tweakings with respect to the strategic objectives under the 4 pillars. Anne?
Yeah, so I just want to make the comment that when you said that, we're not here to talk about, like the SWOT analysis is part of it, but that's not the only part of it. I also want you to understand that when we're looking at this, the SWOT analysis has a lot to do with what the strategic plan has, because the SWOT analysis makes it really clear that, yes, that's one of our strengths as student safety, but whose student safety are we looking at? And I'll talk about it. I feel like it's the elephant in the room that no one wants to say it, and I'll open it and ask and say about it. It's about our marginalized students. How are we keeping them safe? That's why I continuously ask about, how are we, if we're desegregating this data? Because without desegregating the data, we don't know who's answering this. We don't know where they're coming from. And so for that comment to be made that, hey, that's not part of it, yes, it makes a huge part of the strategic plan and how that's going to be successful for the Stings Point School District. So I urge you all that next time you all are thinking about it, look at through a different lens. A lens that maybe you've never looked at something before, and really think about it and where it's coming from and why this information is being used. I mean, if it wasn't a necessary needed tool, would we really be giving out surveys if it wasn't something that we were concerned about? We talked about it being maybe 80%, and again, these are just numbers thrown out there. Maybe it's 80%, but are we looking at the number of students in our districts who are from a marginalized group? Maybe it's the 20% who think they don't feel safe. So again, just look at it through a different lens.
Can I make a comment? And I totally understand what you're saying. I just want you to know that because you weren't at the strategic planning committee, part of that was talking about weaknesses, and Gigi gave a very good
She gave a report.
Talking about some of those weaknesses and marginalization. So I don't think it was ignored in any way, and I think the people who talked about what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, that was part of the discussion in that group. So I don't think it was missed, but I understand what you're saying by looking at a lens. This looks good, but what about the students who it doesn't look good to? So thank you for sharing that.
No, I don't think you understand.
Yeah, I think
what
I
I'm
do.
trying to say. I don't have to be at these meetings to understand. I'm telling you from a lived experience. I think as a school board member, of majority of white folks on the school board member, when a person of color is telling you something, it is from a lived experience. So you don't understand where I'm coming from.
All right, we have a strategic plan proposal in front of us. Do we have any other questions or statements that board members would like to make with respect to either the experience of the day or with respect to the proposal in front of us?
I would just say thank you to all the people who attended the Strategic Planning Committee. It was one day, but I think it was a very collaborative group, and a lot of really good work was done, and was glad to be a part of it.
So if there's no further discussion, I would look for a motion to approve the Stevens Point Area Public School District Strategic Plan 2022 to 2027.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Ebel. Any discussion or questions? And you have a question?
Oh, just gotta put my hand on.
Oh, okay. All right, just want to make sure. All right, all those in favor with the motion with aye?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed with nay? The plan is approved. So future meetings, dates, and times, I'll note, April 11th, we will have our regular school board meeting. That will be the current board. April 25th, we will have a school board reorganization meeting, which will seat the new board members who have been elected at the April election, and then it will be the ability for the board to reorganize what our committees are, what our officers are, what our meetings are, et cetera, et cetera. And that's usually a longer meeting. So, and then we'll have our May 9th, 2022 regular school board meeting. We will be having our committee meetings. The first Ed Services will be the first Monday at 6, and Business Services HR Committee will be at 7 p.m. I would ask for a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to 1985, paren 1, paren C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically to consider preliminary teacher, non-renewals, and employment recommendations and contracts. And more specifically, to note 1, preliminary teacher non-renewals, 2, Director of Elementary Education / Assistant Superintendent, employment recommendation and contract, 3, Director of Secondary Education, employment recommendation and contract, 4, Director of Co-Curricular Athletics and Activities, employment recommendation and contract, and 5, Internship School Psychologist, employment recommendation and contract. So do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Move to go to closed.
Motion by Ebel. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Scott. Any discussion or questions on the motion? Hearing none, I will ask Carlin to call the roll.
Ms. Reno?
Yes.
Mr. Ebel?
Yes.
Ms. Portson?
Yes.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Wade?
Yes.
Mr. Pope?
Yes.
Ms. Va?
Yes.
Mr. Mansky?
Yes.
Ms. Erler?
Yes.
And motion carries.
I will note for those who are remote, you'll need to log out and then log back